Who are the TTP? The label TTP stands for the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan, or in English the Taliban Movement Pakistan, hence why they're often simply referred to as the Pakistani Taliban. This could be somewhat misleading, however, because they are in fact enemies of the state of Pakistan, and the Tehrik-i-Taliban are rather complex as an entity because they aren't simply the Taliban, the more famous Afghan Taliban, but then in Pakistan, and in fact the two groups have often fought one another. The TTP were founded in 2007 when around 12 different groups of Taliban active in the Pakistani border region formed together into one group led by Baitullah Mehsud. As such, they've used bases both in Afghanistan close to the border with Pakistan and those inside Pakistan itself, in an area called the FATA, or the Federally Administered Tribal Areas, which straddles the border, as well as in the bordering regions of Pakistan. Already in 2002, the TTP has its broader origin, as it's in this year following the US invasion of Afghanistan that many of the jihadist groups from that country, including some affiliated with the Taliban, fled into this border region. But the Pakistani army went on an offensive to drive them out, and this was taken by several of the tribes that lived in this area as an attempt to subjugate them, and so a full-scale war erupted. Al-Qaeda, of course, had a very strong position in this border region and has supported the TTP in the past. And so while the TTP has local Pakistans from Waziristan and the bordering area, as well as Afghans that cross the border, there are also Arabs and Chechens and Central Asian Muslims that take part in their attacks as well. The US has often attacked the TTP in this border region with Pakistan with drone and air strike. While the TTP share a name, ideology and common enemy in the form of the US and NATO, with the Afghan Taliban the two groups haven't always seen eye to eye. The biggest difference being the stance on Pakistan, as historically the Taliban in Afghanistan were born in Pakistan and had help from members within the ISI, Pakistan's secret service. However, the Tehrik-i-Taliban's main aim is to destroy the state of Pakistan and create a new one in its stead. In 2008, Mullah Omar, the leader of the Afghan Taliban, requested the TTP to stop its attacks on the government in Pakistan, which was supporting the Afghan Taliban. And in 2009, the two actually agreed, and the TTP decided to help the Afghan Taliban in fighting the uptick in US troops in Afghanistan. However, by the end of the year, this had broken down and there was fighting between Afghan Taliban and the TTP. Although it should be noted that this fighting took place in South Waziristan, which is inside the FATA region, and may actually be down more to tribal differences between these groups, as many of these different Taliban sects in this area follow tribal lines. So it's not necessarily the case that one can easily distinguish into Pakistani and Afghan Taliban, and that is the only reason for the disagreements. Baitullah Mehsud was also killed in 2010 by a US drone strike, and this set off an internal conflict within the TTP as to who would replace him, although eventually this became Hakimullah Mehsud. In 2010, they threatened the United States by saying they would commit terror attacks in cities and tried to do so at Times Square, although they failed. And as such, the United States designated the TTP a terrorist organization, something which was followed suit by the United Kingdom and by Canada as well. In 2012, the TTP threatened the government of Myanmar over its violent campaigns against the Rohingya, a Muslim minority living in Southeast Asia, although nothing ever came of these threats. Following year, in 2013, Hakimullah Mehsud was also killed in a drone strike, and there were further fighting with the Afghan Taliban, this time in Kunar province in Afghanistan, as they were using it as a safe haven for attacks against the Pakistani state. In 2014, they entered into negotiations with the Pakistani state, which led several break-off groups like Ahrar-ul-Hind to declare their separation. However, they would soon return. They nonetheless thwarted the peace talks with several suicide bombings, and in 2014 it was also the year of their most heinous attack against the army public school in Peshawar, in which 149 people lost their lives, mostly children between 8 and 18. This led to the Pakistani military upping their efforts against the group, and what's interesting is that Omar Khorasani, the man behind the attack, when the Taliban took hold of Kabul where he was staying, they actually executed him the day after they captured the city, saying that the attacks were un-Islamic against civilians. In 2014 as well, ISIS-K appeared on the scene, and as I said in my video, many of the first commanders of ISIS-K were in fact TTP leaders who defected. They also received some support from the NDS, that's Afghanistan Secret Service, something which the ISI has frequently talked about, but that's something about glass houses and throwing stones. What's interesting is now that the government of Afghanistan has been replaced with the Taliban in Afghanistan, how the TTP are going to react to this and whether they will change their modus operandi at all or whether they will keep up their attacks. But what is unfortunate is that they are still attacking many people within Pakistan, the most recent attack being just on the 5th of September of this year.